Hey everybody, my name is Michael Atmore. I'm the Editorial Director at Footwear News, and I'd like to welcome you to the second installment of Footwear News' new webinar series, Leadership in a Crisis. Today we're joined by Dave Powers, President and CEO of Deckers Brands. Dave oversees a large international company that includes some very popular, well-positioned brands, including Ugg, Teva, Sanuk, and Hoka One. I consider Dave one of the most forward-thinking leaders we have in the footwear industry, and he has consistently raised the bar when it comes to championing diversity efforts within his company. He has a very innovative and progressive management technique, so I think you're all in for a great conversation with one of the industry's smartest leaders. Before we bring Dave on live, I do want to address a couple of things. Obviously, this has been another historically challenging week in our country, for our world, and we're all hoping for the moment when we can put this incredible, life-changing crisis behind us. Over the past weeks, we've seen both a health crisis and an economic upheaval unfold in a way that most of us would never have thought possible. For those of us in the athletic, fashion, and retail space, the crisis has touched every area of our lives and, among other things, has led to some very dramatic furloughs and revenue loss, more than we've ever seen in our history. There is certainly an enormous amount to tackle here this week, from the developments that we've seen in the news over the past few days to a much longer and deeper conversation about understanding the true impacts of the crisis we face. And the longer this crisis lasts, the more we all see the value of strong and smart leadership. In fact, it is leadership that's going to determine the success or failure at this time, when there are so few certainties. Today, our conversation will cover a lot of ground, from the current retail environment to the long-term changes in operational strategy and consumer behavior that will come as a result of what we're all going through. I said it last week, I'll say it again, and I think I speak for Dave here as well. Our hearts go out to anyone suffering, any family member, friend, or coworker dealing with a pandemic that has upended every aspect of our lives. And though today is primarily going to be a business conversation, and that conversation is important, we are extremely mindful that human health is the number one priority at a time like this. As I said last week with Dick Johnson, there are many leaders who actually don't want to go anywhere near a microphone during such an unsettling time. And while that's understandable on a certain level, it makes today's conversation really all the more impactful and important. When I called Dave Powers, he said yes immediately. And before he speaks to you all, I just want to say a huge thank you for his leadership. We plan an important and ambitious conversation this morning, and before we dive in, I do want to remind you all of a couple housekeeping notes. Today's conversation is being recorded, and it will be available for playback. And following our Q&A, we will allow you to answer or to ask questions. We'll attempt to answer them. So we'd very much like you to be part of this conversation today. If you'd like to submit a question at any point during our conversation, please use the dialog box to the right of the event screen. And with that, it is my great pleasure to bring Dave Powers online. Dave, we're very, very happy to have you as our guest today. Welcome.
Thanks, Michael. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. And I just want to say I think you framed up the current situation that we're dealing with on a global basis very well. And, my heart and thought and thanks also goes out to the global frontline workers who are just doing an extraordinary job on a daily basis, risking their own health and the lives, but also, their families. And, we deal in an industry that's products. They're dealing on the front lines of human lives and taking care of people. And I have a great deal of respect and gratitude for all the work that they're doing. So I share your sentiment on that for sure. It's great to be here, though.
So, Dave, we are going to talk about business a bit. And, it's been a sobering week in many ways. You've seen more furloughs, I think there's a lot of wildly differing opinions on when we're going to pull ourselves out of this crisis. Just give me a sense of how this week, if it's been any different than last week or the weeks before, and if so, how?
Yeah, I think that, the one thing I'm noticing this week in our teams and our business is that things are just settling down a little bit. And what I mean by that is people are getting used to working from home, remotely, virtual meetings. Things have moved the sentiment of shock and awe to more, okay, how do we tackle this? And let's get after the opportunities and be ready to be strong when we come out of this. Certainly, the daily headlines and things and announcements by various companies across the sector are things to pay attention to, but we're trying to keep our mind focused on what we can control, what's in front of us. The biggest issue really this week continues to be managing demand and supply, and the teams are doing an excellent job on that and trying to predict what's going to, when we're going to come out of this and what things are going to look like. But really diving in, making sure that our brands are protected as best we can. We're controlling our inventories and just staying focused on both the short and long term so that we can navigate this from a position of strength and come out of this, feeling strong and ready to roll in a good place.
And before we dive into a few of the things you just brought up, I do want to speak to Decker's charitable initiatives because I do think consumers are very attuned to what companies are doing in this moment. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'd love to speak to that. It's something that is core to my personal beliefs and I feel is very important for companies to do. And we talk a lot about doing great and doing good in the world at the same time. And, one of the first things that I and the leadership team started talking about during all this is, hey, what can we do to take care of our employees and their families and be there for them, but also what can we do to help in the world, and help our local community. And, we quickly galvanized as a team, and I reached out to some of the local leaders in our community of Santa Barbara. We've been here for a long time, and this community is very reliant on Deckers in many ways. And there's a lot of need out there, whether it's, individuals who have, personal financial needs or mental health needs, whether the food bank needs help. But what we've really focused on is galvanizing other leaders in the community here. Set up a fund called the Santa Barbara Better Together Fund, where we can quickly donate money. We're focusing now on helping small businesses because they are really the lifeblood of the community. And so many people and individuals and families rely on the work that those small businesses provide. So we want to make sure that they stay solvent. And then on a global basis, we're doing similar things everywhere we can. We've committed to donating up to $1 million in cash donations through this effort. And then each of the brands are doing their own thing. Ugg, as an example, is committed to donate funds and product to New York City's healthcare system. Is currently doing an Instagram giveaway for everyday heroes of the crisis, giving away 500 pairs a week for the next month. Hoka is in partnership with retailers and has identified 2 particularly hard-hit hospitals in New York and New Jersey to receive Hoka shoes. A lot of healthcare workers globally have adopted Hoka as their go-to shoe because they're on their feet all day and the comfort and the performance that provides. So, we're basically doing everything we can in an authentic and meaningful and impactful way to help people in times of need. And I think we have brands that resonate, and we certainly have a community of employees that are willing to roll up their sleeves and pitch in and do whatever we can. And I'm proud of the way that this company responds to situations like this.
That's excellent. So let's pivot a tiny bit to what the consumer is up to in this moment. Again, trying to keep it within the week here in terms of what feels different, if anything. You mentioned supply and demand. Can you illuminate a little bit more what the current sales picture feels like, what's selling, what's not, and why?
Yeah, I can't get too much detail right now. As you know, it's our quiet period. But I will say, one thing that we are realizing, and we've always thought this to be true for our brands, but our brands are very time-tested, trusted brands that bring a lot of comfort and and good feelings, if that's possible, to our consumers. UGG is a brand that, lives in the comfort world and brings it's a brand that people go to when they want to be comfortable and they, kind of are hunkering down or in a situation when you're working from home. UGG resonates with that consumer. And also with Hoka right now, we've proven that, Hoka is a brand that changes people's lives. And at a time when people are home and looking to be more active, that brand as well as Teva, resonate very well with those consumers. So, we feel good about the brands we have and how they're resonating in this time, in this crisis with our consumers. And we want to be there for our consumers. And I think we'll see that play through over the coming months.
Is there anything from a messaging and social media point of view that you've leaned into or stayed away from in this moment?
We are leaning into authenticity and connecting with our consumers in a real and, authentic way. It's a fine line right now where you still want to be there for your consumers with your brands and your products, but you certainly don't want to be opportunistic at the same time. And I think, leading from a place of compassion with our consumers and understanding of what they're going through, being there with them, going through this together as a partner versus a product, I think is super important right now. And that's what our brands are focused on doing. Certainly we have products that resonate, but it's more as being, a partner for our consumers to provide comfort and a little bit of safety in the world as to how they think about things and what they're going through. And I think the teams are doing a great job of pivoting quickly. It's a lot of work to change your marketing plan like we are so quickly. But I think this is part of what I think the new normal will look like, and being tuned into our consumers first and foremost. That's what's going to resonate right now and for the long term.
I want to pivot a little bit to talk about you as a leader. Can you tell me how it shifted how this crisis has impacted your own style and your own way of working, and maybe give me a sense of your day now?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that over the last month, and I think what I've come to understand is it's really more about amplifying what I and the leadership team do on a regular basis, and the things that we're always focused on is urgency, focus in the business, transparency, and open and honest communication with our teams. I've always said to our organization, we're going to keep you updated as often as necessary. We're in this together, and we're going to keep you guys aligned as to what we're going through. What I've really been doing is just amplifying those things with our team. And what that means is a lot more communication. Now more than ever, you need to be connected to your organization and the people that you employ. Each individual is going through this in a different way. They all have different situations, both at work, personal situations. A lot of our employees have family members at home, kids at home now, and they're trying to juggle all of that. And they want to know that the company that they work for is handling this the right way. They want to know, they want to be, they want to understand what's happening in the business. They want to be included in that. They want a feeling of safety and understanding, and, not everything is going to be good news, but they want to know what's happening so they can minimize some of the stress and anxiety that's in their life right now. And so for me, it's really just amplifying the level of communication. My daily and weekly actions have shifted as a result of this crisis as well. And I think actually for the better for myself and the leadership team. We've ramped up our level of communication dramatically. My executive team and I have a daily video conference every morning at 9 a.m. We have a global leadership team of senior directors and vice presidents across the globe once a week for an hour through video conference. And I'm sending out weekly videos to the full organization as well as emails to keep them informed. So it's really just around amplifying. It's not a change of style. We are who we are. I think we have a fantastic leadership team that leads from the front, but it's really just amplifying what we do on a regular basis and being there for our employees. Anytime, any hour, I'm responding to emails and texts from around the globe really 24/7. But it feels great. It's because we're staying connected to the teams.
Can you talk a little bit about the leadership strategy change that you started last fall? And really, maybe you've covered off on that last answer, but what were the strong points of that, and how has it helped you in this moment?
Yeah, Michael, you and I were talking, the other day about this, and I had mentioned that myself and our executive leadership team had taken some time to go through what I would call a leadership journey. So a series of workshops to improve how we work together as a team, how we align on decisions and make faster decisions, how we communicate, how we tackle, tough, challenging issues. And that was a journey that we went through, because we knew that for the long-term health of the company and the teams, that we needed to be, much more aligned as an organization and as leaders. And we just finished that 4-month journey of workshops in the middle of January, and lo and behold, 2 weeks later, we're faced with the global, health and economic crisis that's directly affecting our business and our employees. And I'm grateful for the work that my leadership team did to prepare for this, and I think it has served us incredibly well as we're managing through this situation. And the amount of collaboration and partnership amongst the leadership team is pretty impressive, and I'm super thankful for the work we did. And I would recommend to any company, there's never a good time to do those type of activities and extra work, but man, it certainly pays off. So if you can find the time, I would definitely recommend it.
What do you think has been the biggest challenge since the pandemic began? Biggest challenge for you?
It changes weekly. I think originally it's, okay, what do we do to shift how we're working, and using technology to, go to work from home situation and keep, the business running solidly. Real-time decisions with regards to, store closures and office closures and working from home and then inventory situations. So it's evolving all the time. Really right now, it's shifting now to getting focused on what's life going to be when we come out of this. And I'm really making sure that myself and my leadership team are focused on making sure that we're managing through this the right way, but seeing this as an opportunity to, adjust our business and to be stronger, 3, 6, 9 months from now. Because I think with our brands and our business model and our organization, we have an opportunity to be in a really good place coming out of this.
And there's a lot of talk about crisis playbook. Did you have a crisis playbook, and would you have one going forward if the answer is no?
We don't have a book that I can take off the shelf and hand to people, but I will say that Deckers over the last 3 to 4 years has been through a great deal of adversity. We've been through activist battles. We've been through, challenges in the marketplace. We've been through, in our Santa Barbara headquarters, fires, mudslides, and now we're facing a global pandemic. And I think that through those adversities that we've been through, what we've realized is that quickly galvanizing, focusing on the things that are going to matter, allowing our employees to, put things on the side burner that aren't critical to being successful in the short term right now, ramping up, as I said before, connection and community and communication with our teams, and then just really getting people focused on what's at hand. And what I keep saying through all of these is focus on the most important things that are right in front of you right now. Don't worry about the news. Don't worry about anything else you're hearing out there. We'll keep you informed as to the things that are important, and just amplify the amount of communication. And so, my advice for crisis management is really get sharp on what you're doing, what's important, what you're saying to employees and partners, and communicate as often as you can. And then also have scenario planning ready to go, because usually in a crisis, and this is certainly one of those situations, you don't know how it's going to end, you don't know when it's going to end, but you got to be prepared for everything, and that's our focus right now.
Do you think that happy day when we're all called back into the offices is going to be Do you think the way that we go back and work within an office environment will be forever changed? And if so, how?
I do think it will be. Again, it's hard to say how, but I even said to my wife last night, I said, that as tough as it is to be away from the teams, and it is hard. I do miss that personal interaction and that personal connection. There is some good about working from home and being, available for your family a little bit more, having some downtime to re-energize throughout the day. And so I think we'll have a more balanced approach of working from home and working in the office that I think will serve us well. We put a lot of trust in our employees with regards to managing their time, vacation hours or sick leave or things like that. We've gone to a more modern approach to managing that. And I think this working from home model and doing virtual meetings and things, a good amount of that will probably stick. And there's a lot of efficiencies and cost savings and time savings that come as a result of this as well that I think will serve us well going forward.
Talk to me a little bit more about that scenario planning idea. What is it exactly, and how does it work?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of companies are doing similar things, so I don't think there's a secret sauce here. But, basically what we said is, okay, we need to be able to get our arms around different situations or different scenarios that we think could happen. And we have a complex business. We have multiple brands, multiple channels. We're global. And each country or region is dealing with this in their own way, and they have different time frames for how they'll, as to when they'll come out of this and the severity of how it's impacting their business. So what we've done is said, hey, let's look at, a base, and then, a little bit worse, and then, really bad situations where we'll have to navigate the business. And really what we are looking at is, assessing those scenarios around time frames. So if things start to turn, back to normal a little bit in May, okay, then we know what we need to do. If it extends beyond May into July and August, okay, we know what we need to do then. And if it goes further, we have a game plan in place that we're ready to enact. And that involves, the business model, it involves inventory, it involves flowing product, it involves merchandising and marketing. These are complex businesses we manage. And so what we've asked the teams globally to do is take a look at your business, your local knowledge, learn from your partners around the globe. We have the advantage of having gone through this already with China and Japan. We can see how they handled it and what the consumer sentiment is coming out of there, and applying those to the other regions in our scenario planning, so that, we are constantly managing the top and bottom line in a healthy way, not making rash decisions, but being prepared for anything. And I think right now, more than ever, you got to be agile and you got to be prepared.
So I'll come back to a couple things, but I want to ask you, do you think that is really going to be the future mode for business planning? In other words, incorporating the what if now much more? For a while, I think things will probably come back to more normal, kind of annual budgeting and guidance and, plans. Right now it's hard to predict. So it's, budgeting and things of that sort become challenging. But that's why you need the plans, because you don't have the certainty that you normally do. We know when our business normally ramps up, for each of our brands throughout the year, and we can plan for that. But yeah, I think, having back pocket plans, which we usually do anyway within our brands, both on the upside and the downside, will become more important. And especially for the next, 12, 18, 24 months as things settle down and we find out, what the consumer changes are and what the marketplace's changes are. Can you give a bit of a window into the learnings from your experiences in Asia when you said they've moved through some of this?
Yeah. What we, similar to what we're going through now, China, went on pretty significant lockdown in the country, back in January and February and into some of March. And we had a call with our global leadership team, about 60 people last week, and we asked our GM of China to share some of the insights and learnings that he got through his experience and the teams in the business. And what we're really paying attention to now is, now that they are loosening up the social distancing and the stay-at-home orders a little bit, and stores are starting to open, we're paying attention to the cadence of the business and how things are coming back. And it's day by day. I think it's still slow to come back to normal. But I think what we're going to see is the return to what is probably a more normalized business is not going to be a straight line kind of increase over time. I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster with dips and valleys and peaks along the way. And we're seeing that, at a not just us, but the country level right now in Japan, where there's a spike again. Hong Kong, they've got another spike. And so those are the things we're paying attention to as we try to scenario plan and model out what the opportunities or challenges could be going forward. So we're fortunate that we have that. I think a lot of companies, hearing some real challenges on right now, are domestic retail companies who don't have those kinds of signals and visibility in their business and supply chain. So I feel it's a bit of an advantage, while it's more challenging, but to have some of those signals in the teams that can guide us as we plan through this.
So let's talk a little bit about your partners. Obviously, you have key retail partners. What is your dialogue like with those retailers now? How has it changed? Is it more personal? Are you spending more time on those relationships, et cetera?
Yeah, we've spent a lot of time, and the teams have done just a fantastic job of really connecting with our partners and creating real strong strategic relationships. And I think that those are serving us well right now. And similar to what I was saying before, we're amplifying the amount of communication. We need to work through this together. They need our help. We need their help. And I'm proud of the fact that we have such strong relationships with our partners and that we're there for each other. So we're, having daily, weekly conversations, or I should say the teams are, the leadership teams, of our brands and the sales organizations globally with these partners. We're making adjustments in our, commercial principles where we can. We're adjusting around inventory and marketing and product to make sure that we are there for them as best we can. And that our brands are protected at the same time. One of the things we are very conscious of is the health and the positioning of our brands. And I would say that they're in a very strong place going into this. We don't want to put that at risk, and so we want to make sure that the partners we're working with are managing our brands as well as they have going into this crisis, and that we're there for these partners to manage through all this with them. And one of the mantras that we use all the time, or I use at our company, is that we're better together. And that's truly the case right now with our partners outside of our own internal businesses, that we are better together, and the more we connect on this and support each other, the more successful we'll be.
And when you talk about brand protection, can you just illuminate a little bit more there? What is the biggest concern there?
Well, just making sure that we're still being presented in a quality way, that we are managing the communication to our consumer, the marketing strategies are consistent, that we stay on course, because the consumer wants to know that the brand is solid, that they can trust it, that it's doing the right things, and it's not changing in the midst of a crisis. And I think, that's what authentic brands do. They stick to the course. They stay true to who they are. They amplify the things that are great about their brands to their consumers, what the consumers love. And so that's where we want to partner with our commercial partners to make sure that is consistent across all of our channels. And I think the teams are doing a great job of that. And I think it's going to continue to resonate well with the consumer.
I mean, how radically different do you expect the playing field to be on the retail side once we emerge?
Well, I think, the landscape in some ways has been a bit risky going into this for a number of years, with the transition of, people moving online, store closures, which, continue to happen. And, this is truly, unfortunately, this is a moment of kind of survival of the fittest. And, it's a sad situation because you're going to see a lot of companies and, again, a lot of employees and their families adversely affected by this. Now, from a business standpoint, it's going to be a new playing field. I mean, it's just a matter of fact that some people will come out of this and be strong for the long term. Some will struggle for a while, and some, quite frankly, may just not make it. And so that's why, keeping our brand strong and being there for those partners to help them navigate through this, because our brands are important to our partners. They rely on us for, full price selling, healthy retails, healthy margins, partnership. And so, the new normal is going to be continuing to work and support those partners. But the landscape's going to shift. You're going to definitely see more people moving online. You're going to see store closures across the board, and that'll create challenges and opportunities. And I really feel for a lot of the smaller businesses and smaller startup brands right now. They're going to struggle the most, and it's going to be an interesting shakeup. But it's hard to predict at this point. But things will certainly change for the long term. You can guarantee that.
And on the sort of opportunistic side of what has changed so radically, what has been changing, is really this direct-to-consumer play. So if we can flip over to the opportunistic side and speak to that a little bit, where do you see the biggest opportunity, and what are you seeing in terms of performance?
Yeah, our teams have always been, and even more so in the last few years, intensely focused on having a direct relationship with our consumer. And that's through marketing, that's through product, it's through, selling in our own e-commerce websites and our stores for UGG across the globe. And I think, we will amplify our focus on the end consumer. And, whether that means we'll improve, the amount of business we do direct or not, the bottom line is we have to stay in close connection with our consumer and understand what they're looking for. The consumer is changing, consumer behaviors are changing faster than they ever have, and they're going to, and what they expect from brands and how they expect to shop. We have a strong insight team here that keeps us updated on consumer behavior. We have a lot of signals from our wholesale and e-commerce and retail stores that tell us what's happening. Shifting to be a much more consumer-led organization with regards to product and go-to-market and communications is something that we're going to continue to ramp up and focus on, and working with the right partners that can execute our strategies along with us.
It would appear that your brand mix is well positioned for kind of the stay-at-home moment. I think List came out with the ranking of the most searched brands in this last couple weeks, and I think UGG was number one. Can you speak to sort of that comfort factor, that idea that everyone's looking for? It seems to be that, and the exercise piece, both of which you have covered. What have you seen?
Yeah, we've had a strong business for both UGG and Hoka for similar reasons, over the years, that we are providing comfort and a feeling of well-being for our consumers. In Hoka, it's healthy, it's allowing people to get out and be active again. And, we've had so many examples or customer experiences, how Hoka has changed their lives and how much they love UGG. And similar to what I was saying before about leadership style, I think this just gets amplified in a time like this. People are looking for, comfort and security and authentic brands that they know they can trust and rely on and are there for them and serve some of their needs right now, which is feeling comfortable and it's not just, physical comfort, it's mental comfort. There's a lot of stress and anxiety right now, and we think UGG helps people, kind of manage through that by feeling good in what they're wearing, whether it's robes or slippers, some of our loungewear. And then the same with Hoka and Teva in Sanuk, is being there and being out and active where you can, or working from home and exercising from home. So we're going to continue to tap into the things that we've always tapped into. And, I think what's great about UGG and in particularly our slipper business is that we have really transformed that slipper business to be fashionable at home and beyond. So it's indoor slippers, outdoor slippers. They're becoming a year-round, kind of daily staple now for us, and reaching into more of the fashion space. And I think that served us well, and I think will continue to serve us well going into the future.
How much does the lack of sporting activity, cancellation of the Olympics, all of the impact of having team sports gone from the radar right now, how much has that impacted your business, if at all?
Yeah, it's tough to say how much that's impacted things currently, but, one of the things that I think is so special about Hoka, and I really give the Hoka teams a lot of credit here, is they have tapped into a new model for an athletic brand, which is really connecting directly with the consumer and being there and empowering the individual athlete. And that is a pretty broad description of what the consumer for Hoka is. The typical playbook for athletic brands is, high-level sponsorships of teams or, professional athletes, and with the intent that trickles down. And certainly that's served, brands like Nike and Adidas, et cetera, very well. But Hoka is a brand that's really there for all people and the individual athlete. And it's not about professional sports teams. Sure, we'd love to be in the Olympics. We have one or two athletes that have qualified for the Olympics this year that are Hoka ambassadors. But that's not going to have a big impact on our business because it's the daily athlete that really loves this brand and has adopted this brand on their own, not by us reaching out and saying, hey, we'll pay you, large sums of money to rep our product. A lot of the ambassadors, most of the ambassadors have come to us and said, hey, I love what you provide for me. And we're empowering the everyday athlete. And I think that's going to serve us well through a lot of this crisis. And we're there for them. We're trusted. We have a great relationship with them, and we empower them at that level. And I think we're going to continue with that strategy.
So a terrific amount of talk about the new normal. I think we're going to probably all get sick of this pretty quickly. But what is in terms of a product sense or a category sense, the success you're having in the moment, the stay-at-home moment? Obviously, those brands were well established, but how much of it carries forward when we, quote unquote, go back to some form of normal? And will there be a pent-up demand? And if so, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, it's hard to say what the new normal is, right? And it's an evolving normal. It's probably a better way to think about it. And I think one of the things that I've learned in my career over the years is that in times of uncertainty, whether it's the 2008 financial crisis or what we're going through now, trusted brands, and more importantly, those brands' products are the things that become more and more important to people. Things they can rely on, things that are, high value and quality for the money, things that are going to have a positive impact on people's lives. It's not, the fashionable item that you want to wear out on a Friday night. It's the item that you can wear every day for the next, couple months because, you need that sense of value and consistency. And you don't have, discretionary income is reduced. When we come out of this, one of the things we are working on right now is staying focused on what we call our franchise items and supporting those. And that's the Clifton and Bondi and Speedgoat and Hoka and UGG. It's, our slipper franchises, the UGG Mini, which is trending very well right now globally, building on those. And then I think coming out of this, it's really getting back to a normal cadence of new product introductions. But I do think it's going to be a smaller assortment. And I think one of the things that this is affording us is the opportunity to go back and focus our efforts and, tighten our lines and be more strategic and making sure that each style is more meaningful and productive as we come out of this. And I think that's advice that would work for everybody right now is focus on what moves the needle in the short term and then be very selective on the new introductions that are going to be, powerful and meaningful for the consumer, knowing that discretionary fashion spend may be challenged for a while.
And speaking to that, what fundamental changes do you expect in the consumer, and for how long?
Well, I think there'll be a sense of, I would probably call it nervousness as to, hey, am I good? Are things back to normal? Can I use my credit card again for discretionary things? I think that'll take a while to come back to a sense of like, okay, we're good. We're back to normal. I think behavior-wise, I think one of the things that is going to continue for sure is curbside pickup. And I think that's just been a fantastic model shift that has happened quickly. I mean, it's amazing what a crisis will do for businesses to react to things fast and move to new business models so urgently. And I think one of the biggest learnings in this is don't wait for a crisis to make the changes that you know you need to change. Advance and innovate around your own business model, whether you're a brewery in town, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're, a veterinary clinic, whether you're an Ugg store, make the changes now and be your own kind of internal activist. And that's the mindset that we try to keep here, and continue to innovate and test things before the crisis comes, because the crisis is great and it is a sense of urgency, and there's a survival mode that you have to go into, but trying to think that way on a regular basis usually serves the business well. But I do think curbside pickup is something that's going to continue. I think people are enjoying it. I think restaurants and other small businesses are realizing that it can be successful. It may be a more efficient way to run a business. I don't need such a large space. I can do more curbside pickup and online ordering and payment. And it's much more efficient for the business as well as the consumer. And I think it affords us a great opportunity to stay connected with our consumer and just be more efficient across the board. I think that's one of the benefits.
Do you think there'll be other changes in the store of the future, if you will, or the stores that have not been built yet as a result of this moment?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. We have a flagship that we will be opening in New York City this fall for Ugg. Super excited about this. It's been in the works for a while. It's going to showcase the full breadth of our product assortment. But one of the key things at the front of the store is a service desk, so that the delivery model for our consumer is fast and efficient. I'm sure you've seen in the holiday shopping period lines outside the Ugg store. We're working to eliminate that and make it much more efficient for our consumers to come in already either purchase or have things waiting for them to try on, so they can be in and out quick, especially when they're shopping for gifts. And I think you'll see a fair amount of new models and retail designs that will be much more of a showroom, and then also have service areas where people can come in. And that's already happening, obviously, with folks like Nordstrom's who's leading there, and Target and others as well. But I think on the brand side, you'll start to see that more and more as well.
And what do you think on the sourcing side will change as a result of this crisis, if there will be changes?
Yeah, I think, the sourcing side of things in our industry is changing, rapidly at the moment anyway, with the migration out of China into places like Vietnam, et cetera. We've been through that over the last 3.5 years. We're now only about 10% of our production is in China, and obviously that's serving us well and has served us well. I think you're going to continue to see, migrating of the supply chain to new, more affordable places for their product. I think you're going to see a more of a focus on speed in the supply chain and tighter management and flow of inventory, both for the brand but also for the retailer. Kind of more closer to market, closer to peak inventory flows will be, more important going forward. You'll probably start to see more, DC bypass or drop ship escalating for the right partners, and that's something we're exploring with, some of our partners. But it's really going to be about speed, efficiency, tighter control, and more, productive inventory. And because again, that's where people are going to get hurt right now. If you're going into this situation and you're over inventoried, that's going to hurt. And so I think people will realize, just like you would in your own personal finances, you got to manage things tightly and be ready for anything. And that involves being agile and fast and efficient.
I want to talk to you a little bit about just how it's changed you personally, if you will. Got a bunch of questions I want to get to from our audience, but was there any experience in the past that prepared you for this moment as a leader?
Well, I think for me personally, coming into the CEO role, about almost 4 years ago now, and then 6 months into this, we had to deal with an activist investor, and that, it was a blunt force object to the head for me and the rest of the organization, really. But what I learned through that is to stay focused on what you can control, manage the communication closely, and be honest and upfront and authentic with your organization, and focus on the long term and scenario plan. And to me, those are the things you need to be doing on a regular basis, but they get amplified in times of crisis like this. But that, to me, has been the thing that I've learned the most is step into it, lead from the front, communicate, and let your teams and your organizations know what's going on. Make sure that your leadership team is tightly aligned and they know what they need to focus on. And plan for the day-to-day as best you can to manage through it. But at the same time, plan for when you come out of it, because business is going to continue, and you have an opportunity to come out of things struggling and taking time to get back to normal, or you come out of situations in a position of strength. And I think what I've seen from our teams and our business is every time we've faced a level of adversity, we've come out in a strong position and are better and more competitive and more aggressive as a result of it, because we know there's so much opportunity for us out there. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think for me also, just on a personal level, it's important to get some downtime and stay mentally strong and focused. It's very challenging when you have, these types of situations and you're on 24/7. You need to create downtime for yourself. And, for me, that's staying active. I love to be outdoors, running, mountain biking, paddleboarding, surfing, but also getting downtime. I've adopted a lot of wellness, mindfulness exercises of meditation, and I've been doing yoga for 25 years. And we recently, last week, we gave our whole global organization, we gave them free prescription or subscription, I should say, to a wellness app called Headspace. And, so far we've had over 6,000 minutes of people meditating through the app from a Decker's employee base. And, not only do they appreciate the effort and it gives them a sense of, hey, we're there for you, but it helps. People getting downtime and staying mentally clear, so that when they do come to work, they're less stressed and less anxious and can be more focused and balanced, both in their professional and personal lives. And I think that's really important for the success of the company and the individual.
What advice would you give other business leaders? What would the key takeaway from this moment be?
I would say focus very much on your actions and the examples that you're setting for your employees, both when employees, customers, and partners externally. And, people are looking to leaders right now across the board and looking for signals in how they're acting. And are you coming across as nervous? Are you coming across as, measured or balanced or confident? Those signals mean a lot to people. And for me, I try to always be somewhat steady and confident and calm, but upfront and honest, and delivering news the right way. But I think be mindful that your organization is watching. They're looking for your signals. They want to hear from you, and they want to hear the good and the bad news. If you don't share it with them, they're going to make up their own ideas or narrative on things, and that just causes swirl and anxiety, and you're better off just hitting issues right up front and leading from the front.
Mm-hmm. Excellent advice. We've got a bunch of viewer questions. I want to get to a couple of them, and three of them are quite interesting here. The first is, what needs to be added as value for the consumer now that it seems to be more of a direct-to-consumer service? So I guess the question is, what do you have? where's the added value in that transaction, if there is?
I think that's something that's evolving. I think service, we try to, excel on the service side of things, being there for the consumer if they have questions, if they're shopping online or in our stores. We're connecting, not selling to them, so to speak. And we'll try to do that any way we can, whether it's in our stores or in our online business. I think added value, kind of gift with purchase, is something we talk about a lot. It's hard when you're selling, footwear to do additional services like a lot of other, industries can do. But it's a good question. I think something that we're going to have to continue to think about. Unfortunately, I can't think of anything on top of my head right now, but for us, it's really value for money and quality are the things that we're focused on, and being there, for the long term and not disposable product. I think that's probably the most important thing that we can do, and continuing to innovate and provide exceptional product and services for our consumer.
The second question is a bit of what I asked you about earlier, in terms of messaging. And the viewer asks or states, there is a sensitive fine line between showing the consumer you care about their situation and this crisis, and then showcasing the product you'll hope they'll continue to believe in and buy. So how do you navigate and maintain your authenticity in this critical moment?
Yeah, I think that's well stated. And for us, what we're doing, we're taking our signals from the consumer. And, the traditional way of going to market with the product is you set a go-to-market plan, you have the marketing and the creative all lined up for days, by week, by month, by quarter. That's shifting dramatically. And especially what I think we're learning, which is great, is listen to the consumer. They'll tell you what they're interested in right now. And, watch their social channels and listen to the comments that they're sending and what's being talked about. And, use that as a barometer for how you would, which products you would highlight, how you speak about them, tune into how people are using your products, and adapt to that. So it's much less of a, we're going to tell you what we think is right for you and how you should wear things, and more as tell us what you love about our products and our brands, and we'll give you more of it. And I think being much more agile and focused in on that, and being able to shift quickly is what's going to serve us well.
And I think we have time for one more. It's an interesting question. How do you feel the recovery curve for .com versus brick and mortar will differ? And what are your thoughts on, drop ship you already answered, but will the consumers, I guess the second part of the question, will consumers be reluctant for a period of time to go into a brick and mortar store? This is the second part of that.
Yeah, good question. I think certainly you will see a faster ramp up of e-commerce business for everybody, whether you're a retailer, a department store, whether you're a brand or a small business. The ramp up in the short term and probably the long term in online businesses is here to stay. Obviously, we've been talking about that for a while, and it takes a situation like this to really amplify that. But I'm a firm believer that people do like the experience of shopping, and they do love going into stores and connecting with the general public, and being out there and experiencing things firsthand, not just virtually or digitally. So that's going to return. It's just a question of what does the new landscape look like? What does the store experience look like, and how does that evolve? What do stores become? Are they much more of a showroom and service model versus traditional, stacks of inventory? I think that's going to change quite a bit. You will see an adjustment, and I think people are seeing that already, that e-commerce will continue to become more important. But the stores will always be there, and the ones that have exceptional merchandising and experience and service are the ones that are going to thrive in this situation and be stronger, because, quite frankly, there's going to be less retail outlets in the future. And so the ones that are around are going to have to raise their game, and if they do, they'll be very successful.
Dave, we could continue to talk all day. We're closing in on an hour here, so unfortunately,
this is fun.
I'm gonna say thank you again for joining us. I think it really speaks to your leadership that you remain so accessible in such a challenging time. So thank you very much. And I want to urge all of you viewers to tune in Wednesday, April 22nd for the third installment of our series. And Dave, thank you. Stay well, everyone. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and everybody on the call. I hope you and your families are safe and healthy, and just stay strong, stay focused. We'll get through this together. Appreciate the opportunity, Michael. I think it's important now that we're all sharing what we're going through and learning from each other, because there is no playbook for this, and every day is a new challenge. So the more we can stay connected and learn from each other, the better off we'll all be. And I'll close it by saying we truly are better together. So just remember that, and we'll get through this. But thanks for the opportunity, and take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.